Have you ever wanted to create something that could offer just a splash of color for a part of your home or a friend's home that really just needed some touching up? Well, today on Mixed Media Masters, we're going to approach a project that will allow us to do just that. Hello, makers, and welcome to the studio. Now, if this is your first time here, welcome. Good to have you here. If you see anything along the way that you like, please don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us out. And also, if you like what you're seeing and want to see more of this type of content, then please hit that subscribe button. We drop a video every single week, helping you to unleash your inner artist. Now, this week, we're going to be doing something somewhat different from a lot of the projects we've worked on so far on this channel. And that is, we're going to be creating something using a paper approach, but it's kind of different. Let me explain what I'm talking about. It's this. Now, this often sits on the wall behind me, and some of you have commented over it. What is that thing? And what it is, it's basically a series of rolled up pieces of paper that have been stuck in a frame. But not just that, not just that. Now, by the way, I refer to this kind of internally in my own head as kind of a millefiori approach. Millefiori is originally a glass making term for making glass beads, and millefiori quite literally translates to thousands of flowers. So we're kind of doing that. You notice all the blend of colors that work together? Yeah, that's our objective today. Now, the reason I need to show this to you somewhat before we jump in is because I want to show you how it's made so we can, in essence, deconstruct it. So to begin with, here's one of my beads, for lack of a better term. And if I were to come in here, I'm going to take this apart. And you can see this right here. And what I'm doing is I'm unrolling this thing. You'll notice that it's a layer of tissue paper here. We have some blue tissue paper. And as I come a little closer, I'm going to jump into some yellow tissue paper. And then as I unroll that further, I'm going to come to the core. And that core is a piece of polymer clay. And we use this to wrap our tissue paper around. And it's really that simple. So I'm going to show you how we're first of all going to roll out polymer clay. And then, of course, with polymer clay, we're going to need to bake it to get it to its hardness so we can work with it. And then I'm going to show you how we can create these individual beads. All right, so that is on store for today. So let's put the artwork away. And let's talk a little bit about what our approach is going to be today. Now, to begin with, as in my example here, I want to be able to have something that I can actually put my paper beads into. And, I can run down to my workshop. I can grab a 2x4. I can make all sorts of amazing things. And by the way, here's an example of one of these I made a couple of years ago using a bent frame that I created. So you can do some very interesting approaches if you want. And I've also gone online in the past and looked for little trays, almost like condiment trays made out of bamboo and things like that, that will allow you to create a fairly interesting framework. Again, you may not have a frame just lying around, and I get that. This is kind of a unique shadow boxy kind of thing. But I'm going to show you also an alternative that is really affordable. And that is this guy. So I went to my local Family Dollar, my dollar store. And so for $1.25, I think is what I paid for this. I created a bit of a box. Now it comes with this delightful rainbow, which I won't be needing. But that may come in handy for a future project. But what I'm looking at here is thinking that this box would be really perfect for the project that I want to work on today. It allows us to fit what we need to do within the scope of an hour and allows us to get that splash of color that we might want. Now, the first thing I'm going to do with this box is I'm going to paint it up. I'm going to come in here and let's get this label off here. We don't want that as part of this. So get the label peeled. Come on, you can do it. Perfect. And I'm going to go with a flat basic black for this. Let me just get a piece of newspaper out here so I don't get paint all over everything on my my cutting board, because invariably I do, and invariably I have to take the cutting board away for a while and scrub it really hard in the sink. The paint comes off, surprisingly, but it takes a fair amount of elbow grease to get there. Now, in this case, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to paint this up using a flat basic black. So here we go. And I'm not going to worry too much about the inside because we're not really going to see that, but I'm just going to come in here and let's just get the edges. Anything up at the top, that's where it's going to be visible. And so we'll get that done real fast. Not a hard paint job at all. And we'll decide if we need more than one coat. I don't really think we will, but sometimes you don't know until it dries. Okay. Okay. Now this is where we are going to be showing it. It's going to be the outside. So again, let's just get a good coat of black paint on that. And we get the edges here as well. I have a feeling I'm going to get paint on my fingers. There's just, sometimes when you're painting something, you just realize there's just no way around it. Well, I guess you could wear gloves, but here I am without gloves. It won't be too bad as long as we don't lose fingerprints. That's the only thing that really matters. All right, and looking good. And so I'm going to get this side as well. And I'm also going to do the bottom. I'm going to do the bottom because I might want to put my signature on the back here. And I don't know, it's just going to look more complete if everything that anybody could see when they look at this finished project. Going to see nice basic black. All right, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now again, I might want to touch this up, determine where it's touching the newspaper, and if anything's a problem. But let me give that a couple moments to dry. And actually, I don't need to worry about that too much. I'm going to pop this over here, put it off to the side for a little bit, and if I need to come back and touch it up later, I can do that. Okay, so what do we do now? We have a box that we want to put things in. The next thing I want to focus on is let's make the core that we're going to use for our beads. I went out and I said, let's see if I can find a fairly cheap set. Now I found this one. It's actually impressive. It's 72 different colors. It was not expensive at all. And I'll be honest with you. There's some brand name polymer clays that are pretty good quality. And if you're making little sculptures and things like that, I would go with that for sure. Some of the off-brand stuff that you might get, it doesn't have necessarily the same level of quality. That said, for what we're doing, you don't really need much more than the color. We're really going in here for the color. So being able to come in and say, all right, I want to be able to take a blue color or this rather bright pink color or some sort of an orange color. And by the way, just to share, this particular set comes with some pretty impressive tools. If you do want to use your polymer clay for other projects, such as sculpting things, and there's some press molds that are hemmed. You can even create your own jewelry, right? So pretty cool stuff. Not going that far for what we're doing today. I really just want to come in here and be able to take some of my clay here and turn it into basically strands of spaghetti. So let me look at this out of the way. And let's talk a little bit about how we might approach this. I'm going to work with my, my orange block first, let's say. And what I have found in doing this in the past is that about half this block is good for each one of the strands or cores that I want to make. So I'm just going to grab my rotary cutter tool and just get this thing cut down the middle. Just open that up. There we go. Now, when we're working with polymer clay, one of the things to keep in mind is that sometimes, especially during colder weather, you got to work a little bit. You got to get a little heat into it for it to be able to become somewhat pliable. So I'm going to give it some body heat here and kind of squeeze it down, and just make sure I mix it up a little bit so that it's free flowing more than it is quite in the brick form. Okay, but something a little bit more like a soft putty that I can work with. And what I'm doing here is really easy. So you may not consider yourself a sculptor, and you don't really need to be one, thankfully. What we're going to do instead is I'm simply going to roll this out. Like when we were kids playing with, modeling clay, I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to make a log, and I'm going to progressively get it longer and longer and longer by stretching it out like this, right? And try to get rid of the lumpy parts. What I'm trying to do is get this down, and so that it's a snake or a worm or whatever you want to call it, that's about maybe less than 1/4 of an inch, I think. And one of the ways I'm going to actually measure this, to be totally honest with you, let me just move this stuff out of the way for a hot second, is I am going to use my baking sheet as my measuring tool. Why? Well, because I have to bake my polymer clay, and so if I'm putting this in here, I can get a deeper sense of how well this will fit. Let me finish it. Get paint on myself, even though I wasn't really going for that. That was not the objective, so we'll get that out of the way. So actually, maybe even less. Maybe I can break this into thirds. Let's just find out. What I want to be able to do is just, again, get these fairly thin, not crazy thin. Like I said, I'm looking for about a quarter inch, maybe a little tiny bit less than a quarter inch. But when I come in here and I drop it on the baking sheet, I want it to be able to, fit. That's really the objective here. So this is your standard 12-inch baking sheet coming in here. We're going to need this, of course, because we're going to need to drop this in the oven. Oh, by the way, if you are working along with me, this is right about the time when you want to set your oven to 275 degrees, preheat it. And when we're done making our cores here, we're going to have to bake them for about 15 minutes, depending on the thickness of what we're doing. In this case, since we are working with something that's about a quarter inch, it's about 15 minutes. It's usually 15 minutes per quarter inch of polymer clay. All right, just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to add some more polymer clay to this. Let's see if we can get 3 logs out of this. And if we don't, no harm, no foul. There we go. Again, this is one of those, truly multimedia experiences, right? We're doing a lot of mixed media in the sense that it's going to allow us to come in here and work with some sculpting and work with some tissue paper and work with paint and, hey, we get to deal with a lot of different things. Kind of fun. All right, and again, I think this might be longer than I need. All right, so how are we doing there? Yeah, and I'm just going to say, you know what? That's good enough. Pinch this off. Let's add it to this one. I'll make a 3rd log in here. As you can see, this is not a hard process at all. The main challenge here is just making sure we have uniform thickness as we create these things. But I think that looks pretty darn good as well. If it's a little longer, then that's fine too. All right. But what I want to be able to do is to be able to drop this in the oven for 15 minutes, give it a few minutes to cool down on the other side of that. And then when we get back, we're going to have our center core to be able to work with. I'm going to show you how we can now start to put tissue paper around that and make things worthwhile.
2 weeks later.
Okay, welcome back. Now our polymer clay has had a chance to go through baking. And by the way, I'm using some older versions that I created just so I have some extras and didn't have to roll out a lot since I already have some here. So we're going to be working with these. But what I want to show you is the process we use to wrap the tissue paper around our polymer core. And as you can see, I have some tissue paper here. If you've worked with me on previous projects, you know that my tissue paper pile is one of those things that I try to keep organized, and it's a hard thing to do once you break it out of the package. But what I'd like to do in this scenario is find some colors that might work well together. And I'm going to start by grabbing a core color. I'm going to use this white here. It's a good neutral color to work with. And I'm thinking what might really be fun here is to use a pink color, and this blue color would also go really well with the pink color. Very contrasting. And again, I'm going to have to kind of sort out my my tissue papers. What I've discovered in the past is that what I want to be able to do is find my tissue paper, a standard sheet like this, and I want to fold it in half. Let me just get this organized a little bit. Fold this in half, and I'm going to cut it down the middle on this seam here. I'm going to do the same thing with my pink sheet. Cut it down the middle here. And again, I'm going to just use my rotary cutter because that is my tool of choice, if I can find it here. And nothing working with tissue paper to totally take over your workspace. But let's, I'm just going to follow the seam here. It makes it easy for me to find where that is. So I'm going to have some pink here. Let's do the same thing with this blue. Let's cut this in half. And again, just kind of follow the seam. And it's approximate, doesn't have to be precise once again. All right. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create almost a palette of colors that I can work with here. Let me do a few more of these. I've got some yellows. This one's been used, but this one here, and cut this yellow down the middle. Beautiful. So we'll add some yellow to our mix. What do we have in here? We have some more pink, but that orange is nice. So let me grab this orange, and again, approximately down the middle. Pow, and pow. What do we have here? Ooh, Sometimes darker colors like grays really work well because, again, it's a good contrasty color. Looks like that one's cut kind of an odd shape. How are we doing here? Hello, Mr. Green. Yeah, we definitely want to have some of you in here. All right. And we have some magenta. And I'm really just kind of setting up, again, how all these colors work together is going to be the overall, outcome of our final project. And if you've worked with me, you know that I really like a good polychromatic mix where you have about 70% of the colors of the rainbow in things. I just think it makes things a lot more interesting and exciting when we look back at them. But there's no right way to do this. You can come and say, I want nothing but tones of blue and make it yours. So happy to do that. How are we doing? All right. Well, if I need more, I will come back for more. But in the meantime, let me get my pile off my work table here so I can. There we go. So I have more room to do the things I need to do. Now, the next thing we're going to need for this project is a good old-fashioned glue stick. And yeah, I have a couple of these. This is the Amazon Basics glue stick. It's actually the one that has the purple in the glue, and when the glue dries, that purple disappears. So just really helpful for helping you when you're working on projects to know, did I get some glue there or not? Did I get enough glue there or not? All right, so we'll work with that. But what I want to be able to do is I'm going to take my core. In this case, I'm using that white core, and I'm thinking, all right, how do I want to wrap this? What are the colors? And let's just go back into kind of where we started, and I've got my pink and my blue colors. We'll say, all right, so we're going to have pink, and we're going to have blue. All right, so, and this pink, looks like I have two of them. There we go. All right. So a couple things I'm going to do. I'm going to actually double up on each one of my tissue papers here because we're going to just roll them together anyway. And this will make things a little bit easier. Let's put blue next to the white, and then the pink will be on the outside. So when we kind of stack things up, it's going to kind of run like that. Does that make sense? And let me show you what this looks like. I'm going to come here. I'm going to just put the core next to myself, just make it easier for me to reach for the glue. I'm going to grab my glue stick here, and I'm going to run a bead of glue just down the edge here where my fold is on the tissue paper. And that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to put my polymer clay core right in there, and I'm going to just do a roll like this, okay? And I'm basically just rolling it up like that, and just try to keep it as even as you can. And by the way, if sometimes they come out a little bit sloppy or a little bit loose, that adds additional texture to the finished project. So you're going to have some interesting variety. So don't worry about it. It's okay if it doesn't come out perfectly every time. Now I'm also going to work on aligning my next piece of tissue paper up. And at the top of my blue, let's come in here and let's add some more glue. And this glue is going to be used to get our tissue papers glued together. I'm just going to kind of create a seam like that, all right? And then I'm going to keep rolling. And now I'm rolling up here, and the pink is becoming the color on the outside. And as I come up to the very top, I want to seal this thing off, almost like making a cigar. We're going to come up here, we're going to glue this off here at the top, and I might need to come back with my glue stick and just run a bead of glue down here just to pick up that outer loose layer, okay? Let's see if that will work for us. All right, there we go. So that is our objective. Again, let me just listen. Glue the loose things down. It's not going to matter too much, but we want to make sure we have something that kind of looks like this. So if you look at it on the end on, we can see our polymer core. We have some blue around it. We have some pink around the blue. And I'm going to continue to make these because what I want to do next is I want to come in here and I want to basically chop these into the right length. And we'll talk about what that is. So let's go make another one while we're here. I'll use this green color as my core. And I think this peach will contrast nicely with it. So let's get a sheet of the peach tissue paper. That will be something. And you know what? I think we have some green here that will work as well. No right answer. Do whatever makes you happy. But I like to get my pieces ready to go lined up like that. So yeah, we'll have kind of green and green. No, you know what? Actually, let's do something. I'm going to change my mind because I can. Let's do something a little bit brighter since we have a green core. Let's let's kind of go from a lighter orange, that's what that peach is, to a deeper orange. So once again, I'm going to start down here at the bottom and just drop a line of glue in here so I can get my core adhered in place. And then let's just start rolling that up. Okay. This one's a little bit looser than the previous one, and that is just fine. Let's get some glue at the top of our tissue paper, and let's marry these two pieces of tissue paper together like that. Beautiful. And yeah, this is definitely going to have a different look and feel than the previous piece, and that's going to be okay. That's going to be okay, as long as we're close. Okay, and yes, we have another cigar. So a couple of them are running here. Now, I'm going to go and I've got a bunch to make. Not sure exactly how many I'm going to end up with for the size of the piece that we're working. My guess here is I'm going to need at least 20 of them. All right, so this is one of those projects, again, where you kind of just get your groove on and listen to your favorite audiobook or music or whatever it is while you're doing this, and just go to town and start mixing some things up. So let me speed through a few of these, and we'll get to where we need to get to.
Several months later.
All right, welcome back. Now, during my hiatus, I was able to create about 20 of our different bead logs, or whatever we call them, but here they are. And I think that's going to fit into the box that I've put together here, which is right here. It's still drying a little bit, mostly dry. One of the things that occurred to me when I was looking at this is that if I were to take these and basically figure out how long my beads need to be in order to fit in here, I'm going to have a lot more cut off, right? They're going to have to be a lot longer than I really want. At the end of the day, I don't really care how much is below the surface. I'm really only looking at the surface. So it occurs to me that this is probably about 2 inches deep, I think, the box that I purchased. And I only really want to show maybe about an inch worth of bead. So I said, well, what am I going to do about this? And then it occurred to me, you know what? My good friend, foam core. Foam core to the rescue. And what this allowed me to do is I just created some shapes the basic size of the bottom of my box here. And now I can just slide them in and just push them down. And in doing so, it just gives me an opportunity to create, in essence, a spacer so that when I go to put my beads in, they don't have to be as deep. All right. And so now, instead of going 2 inches, my beads can be roughly an inch and work out just fine. And that means that my beads are going to go a lot further than we want. Now, I managed to just get paint all over myself. So again, let's go get the paper towels out and let's do something to clean up on aisle 5 here. This is what happens when you try to do things on camera too, is that every so often you're like, hey, let's rush it a little faster than we should. But we'll let this dry, hopefully, in the next little bit. It's almost there, almost there. And in the interim, let's talk about how we're going to approach these different logs, if you will, and make them into something. So each one of these is roughly, I don't know, I'd say just shy of a foot in length. And by the way, I have this easy peasy measuring in front of me here. So just about 10 inches each one of these comes out to be, which is fine for what I'm doing. What I'm thinking is I want to go through and I want to chunk it down into roughly 1 inch sized beads. And I'm going to, again, use my trusty rotary cutter here. And it's always nice to do this with a sharp new blade. And by the way, if you are interested, I'll link this either down below or at the end of this video. I have a video on how to change the blade in your rotary cutter. Not crazy hard, but sometimes it can be a little confusing. So I'm going to simply come here and working with the grid that I have on my cutting board, I'm going to say, you know what, let me cut this end here. All right, that'll be 1. And then about an inch over here, let's create that. All right, and so in doing so, I've created my first bead, and this is going to allow me to then say, okay, now if I were to take this bead and put it into the box, what is it going to look like, right? So it's just a little bit below the surface, which is perfect for what I want to be able to do. Now, there are a couple different schools of thought when it comes to working with the beads. One of those, in my previous example, I tended to cut these all up and then cluster them together. I find the clustered effect is really good. It just draws the eye to that color combination, and you can have kind of different groupings, different cells, if you will, that can work out here. So I'm going to try to do the same thing here. Let me just come in here, and again, let's go and grab roughly an inch. And if they're not all exactly the same length, even better. It's going to give us a little bit of abstraction and relief. But come in here. You can also use the utility knife if you don't have a rotary cutter. So, you know, it's a bit of a workout either way, because there's quite a few layers that we need to cut through. But I find the rotary cutter makes really quick action here. And of course, I'll have a link for the Fiskars brand rotary cutter in the description below. All right. And then I have a tail here. Do I have enough off the end of the tail? Maybe I can get one more. We'll see. And then I say, all right, so if I were to take these, and again, I got some wetness in here. I might wait a little bit on this. But say, okay, if we group these all together, what might that look like when we put them in? It's going to be an interesting combination. Let's grab another one of our logs in here. I'll grab this orange one, which has an orange core. And again, I'm going to just start by trimming off the tail end here. And now this one didn't wrap as tightly. Whoops. And by the way, sometimes I find, because, you know, it is what it is, sometimes you find that you might have been missing something that didn't glue all the way up. So I'm just going to repair that bead with a quick spot of glue, and all is good in the world. There's another one, and some more. And please be careful. You know, I know that you probably have this down, but I tell you, when you're working with a round blade on a round object, the opportunity for it to slip and go toward your fingers is a little too real. I've been very fortunate that this guy has never drawn blood, but it doesn't mean it hasn't tried. So there we go. All right, so get as much as we can out of that, and here we have a group of orange that we can work with here. And I'm going to keep going through these, and I'm just going to create a number of beads. And again, I'm kind of partially waiting for this to dry here. Hopefully in the next few moments, it won't be a big problem. And then I'll show you how to drop the beads in. Kind of how to figure out what the look and feel is going to be. By the way, the thing about also working with the rotary cutter is every so often you gotta need to just tighten that up again. It just gets loose over time, and your blade starts to wobble a little bit. That's how you can tell, especially when you're doing intensive cutting like this. I think we can get one more out of here. Beautiful. Okay. And so we have that color. All right, let's see if I can start layering some things in without getting paint all over myself. Okay, so I might come in here and I say, you know what, let's drop this piece in here like this, and I'm going to kind of just stack these guys like this. This will be kind of our established corner here. And we're going to really rely upon these things being crowded together as kind of the glue to hold them in place, if that makes sense. We're going to just jam them in here, and so we have a lot of them, and that's going to help to pull everything together. Let's get the this pink in here. I'm going to kind of go across the bottom a little bit here. Again, hopefully you can see exactly what's going on in here. Nice. Let's get this green in this corner over here, like that. Like I said, I'm keeping the colors somewhat clustered. I just find that sometimes that can be really fun, but there's nothing wrong with mixing them up. You can absolutely come in here and mix them up as well. And I'm not going to be too precise about grouping. I'm just going to get them kind of all in roughly the same area. But once again, our eyes are going to be the outside surface. We're not going to see anything in the depth here. So it's just about coming in here and making sure this looks the way you want it to. I think this one here is upside down. There we go. That looks much better. All right, so I've got to start here, but I've got to cut some more, that's for sure. So I'm going to continue on in here. And Okay, so I've just cut up a bunch more. And let's just kind of drop these in, see what we do. We can also rearrange things. There's nothing to say that wherever we place it has to stay forever. So I'm going to group that. I'm going to put a little of these in to mix it up. There we go. And actually, I'm going to kind of do a combination of just different colors, kind of less grouping than I did on the bottom, and see how that works out for us. Just kind of pick them up and put them in. Okay, and a few of these yellow ones are kind of unraveling, but again, that gives us some additional textures to kind of add into the mix. Looks like I might have enough. Maybe I need to cut up one or two more. We'll find out, and that's one of the things I will do here is just start putting these into place and get a sense of how well they're going to fit. And we want this, these are going to end up being in here pretty tight. So once we have all of the pieces in, we'll get a sense of how well this is working out for us. Pretty close, pretty close. I think we are going to need to cut up one more just to kind of, like I said, we really want to wedge these in there. And so this is going to give us an opportunity to do just that. All right, so it's good, but there's still some wiggle room. So I'm going to take this this green one on the outside anyway. Let's cut this up, and again, let's just. There we go. It's got a yellow core. That'll be nice. This might be enough. We'll see. And I'm going to put these in this corner here again. Keep sliding them in until I can't fit any more in. That's kind of what we're doing here. It's starting to get pretty tight. But is it tight enough? Well, actually, I think we're going to need one more, believe it or not. I know it looks like it's in there, but once again, we start squishing down, we can make a little bit more real estate in there. So I guess I'm going to go with this one with the magenta outer. I think I can get one more out of this piece. Yes, I can. There we go. And again, you see with the reason for the spacers at the bottom is just we'd only have half. If if these reach 2 inches long, we would only have half the ones we really needed to fill this thing up. And since we only need the top surface, by the way, I'm going to kind of just drop these in various places, just kind of mix it up a little bit, although I'm not sure how much that mixed up right there, but we'll break up some of these other chunks of color just to keep it interesting. Keep your eyes looking for something, right? It's like, see here, putting that in the center of that cluster of other everything else that's the same really draws your eye to it. And oh, I don't know, maybe we need even one more. Cramming these in, but we still have room for some wiggle. Yeah, I'm going to do one more at least. Let's see, I'll go with this pink one here. Okay, this might be enough. I'm gonna work for some of the edges here. There we go. here we are. I'm going to break up this cluster down here. Again, I'm kind of just changing my mind along the way, saying, you know what? I think it works better when these are not all the same. Yeah, this is finally getting to the point where I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the fact that, you know, if you were to drop this on the floor, please don't, but if you were to drop it on the floor, nothing's automatically going to come spilling out. That's kind of what we want to be able to have here. Ugh. Come on. I could fit 2 more in. I can do it. I know I can. It is starting to get really tight, which is great. All right, and last one, put it up here. I don't know. You're going to thwart me? Come on, we can fit 1 more in. There's always room for 1 more. There we go. Oh, I even had one more. Goodness, this one got away from me. How about you? Can you fit it there? All right. I made it happen. Now I come in here and adjust it a little bit. Just wiggle it with my thumbs and make it happen. But what we're going to end up with, of course, is going to be based upon the color combinations that we pull together. And so depending upon what color tissue paper you have, what color Sculpey or polymer clay you're working with, is going to make a big difference, obviously, as to the outcome. But what I wanted to be able to show you today is exactly what we ended up with here, which is something that's kind of fun. I'm going to call this butterfly eye because I think it kind of looks like that. What do you think? Kind of an interesting concept. But again, this is just a small piece of artwork that you could easily put a hanger on the back of this and hang it on the wall. Or it's the kind of thing that might sit on a mantelpiece, depending on what it is. And there's nothing to prevent you, by the way, from doing something interesting by combining a few of them. So if you want to come in here and say, let me glue these 2 boxes side by side and create something like that, and do the same thing with the other one, or maybe it's a different color, who knows? Anyway, your imagination is really the only limitation here. But again, with just a couple simple materials, some polymer clay and some tissue paper and a box, right? Okay, a little bit of glue. You can create something that is incredibly unique, hopefully a conversation starter, something that looks good in your home, something you can sell to somebody else, whatever works for you. All right. So, hey, I hope you had a good time today. And again, we do this every week, so we'd love to have you stop on by. Feel free to subscribe. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming by. This is Spider, and I'll see you next time.